Hello again, YouTube. If you've got this far, you've reached the end of the YouTube series on Web API. So congratulations, and thank you for sticking with me throughout the 11 or 12 videos that we've done on learning this subject. And once again, a big congratulations. We've covered a lot of ground in a very short space of time. Please go back, revisit bits of the course just so you cement those concepts and ideas in your head. So just as a recap, this is what we went through. In part 1 we created the solution and we detailed the various bits of software you'd need on your machine. Part 2 we decided that we needed to go and get information from our web API, so made use of the HTTP GET verb. In part 3 we decided we would also need to be able to push information into our web API through inserts, updates and deletes. So we used the HTTP verbs that would help us achieve that. At this point we could stop and we've got the basic grasp of what we need, but that's only demoware, and with our good citizens hat on we want to produce something that's best practice and ready for production. So we continued on through part 4 to validating the user input that comes in using data annotations. We also looked in part 5 on how we could reshape the data using data transfer objects and the benefits that gave us. And finally in part 6 we started to look outside the web API to build some infrastructure and create an actual physical SQL database that would persist our data. At that point we drew breath and we took stock of what we'd done and just reviewed some of the things up to that point. Then, reinvigorated in part 8, we carried on to look at introducing a part of the code that was just interested in talking to the database. This was known as the data access layer. Part 9, we looked at one approach of where we could actually call this data access layer code and make use of it. In part 10 we looked at another approach for using this data access code that's my preferred method, and it introduced a secondary tier known as the business logic layer where we could add pre and post processing to our database calls. And finally we reviewed everything that we'd done. So yeah, we've covered a lot. And it doesn't stop there, because there's more information that you can gather on web APIs through my paid content that's not available on YouTube. But more about that in a minute. So just remember that all the code that I've been showing you throughout the series is available in my GitHub repository, which the address is shown on screen. So please feel free to download that and play with it yourself. Also, as this is my first series on YouTube, I'd be interested on any feedback or comments or suggestions for future series, as this is all a learning experience for me as much as it is for you. So comments and feedback are greatly appreciated. So now, just to go on a little bit more about the content that's not available on YouTube, that's available in the descriptions below at the various other content channels where you can get this. And some of these content channels may require a payment and some may be free, possibly. I don't know yet, as I haven't created that content. But just to give you an idea what that gives you over and above what you've had from the YouTube series. There'll be some additional subjects that just carry on building on the good practice, because in software nothing's ever finished. There's always room for improvement. So some of the additional subject matter that's not available on YouTube that will be available on the other content channels are things such as logging, a more detailed dive into dependency injection, something called CORS, swapping out the tiers of our web API to use different things. So for example, rather than our Dapper data access tier, we could have a look at using a NoSQL database tier, or even use an entity framework, etc, etc. Throughout this course I've mentioned for converting to data transfer objects that there is a third-party NuGet package known as AutoMapper. We will discuss that in more depth rather than my hand-cranked object-to-object mapping. We'll go on about unit testing and approaches to that, integration testing and tools we can use for integration testing, such as Postman. At this stage our API has not been secured, so at the moment it is completely open and anyone could use it. That may not be what we want to do, so we look at authentication and authorization, what they are, why they're different, why you would need them. And we'll also look at improving the Swagger documentation that you get out of the box. So these are just a few things that we'll be looking at in our paid areas of content, but there'll be much more as well. So bear that in mind if that's of interest to you. So that brings us to the end of this course. So remember, I am the Hawaiian shirt coder, and it's my job to keep you learning, keep you exploring, and keep you developing. So I'll see you soon.